On another quiet day in Westminster, welcome back to Farage with me, your host tonight, Martin Daubry. Now, we are continuing our coverage of an astonishing day in Westminster, and earlier on this afternoon, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage announced he was putting his party on a general election war footing and suggested it is only a matter of time before Sir Keir Starmer is forced to step down. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio by the Reform UK MP for East Wiltshire, Danny Kruger, who joins us. Danny Kruger, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. Company, you've hot-footed it back from Birmingham there, I see, Mr. Kruger. Let me start, if I could, with the topic du jour, as it were, and that is the seemingly spiralling demise of Sir Keir Starmer. Do you think he should go?
Well, I think it's now inevitable. The Prime Minister depends for his authority on his own party, and that's now shot to pieces. There may be a stay of execution while his rivals for the crown organise themselves, but it's clearly now a matter of when, not if, Keir Starmer goes.
But I guess you've got to be careful what you wish for, Danny Kruger. On the one hand, the party could tack to the left. What would that do for the country if we had somebody like Angela Rayner as the Prime Minister?
Well, I'm afraid that is more likely than not necessarily Angela Rayner, but whoever wins will only do so by appealing to the left of the Labour Party and indeed to their membership. So I think the country is in for a rocky ride now, and I'm very concerned about what the reaction of the markets and indeed of ordinary people in the UK will be. I mean, Nigel today at the rally we had in Birmingham was really stressing the economic situation we're in, and so not just many rich people emigrating or sending their money abroad, but lots of talented young people just voting with their feet and thinking that they need to get out. And I think that will accelerate if a new Labour leader comes in. So it's bad as it is now, it is going to get worse.
What do you say to those people who put the wider assumption out there, and that is people are just sick to the back teeth now of political parties? That includes the former party of yourself, the Conservatives, who just simply don't seem to listen to the electorate. They seem to believe that politicians know better. And we have a situation now where the British electorate are just looking at politics as broken, pointless, redundant.
I think that's right. I mean, we in our party say that Britain is broken. We don't think it's irretrievably broken. What's fundamentally broken is our politics. The state is failing, and you see that in the two main parties and all these leadership dramas, which people rightly get so exasperated by because it's politicians focusing on themselves, not the country. That's because they don't know what they're doing, they don't know where they're going, they don't have a governing idea. The great contrast with the reform is we know what we want to do, and it's no surprise that we have no questions about leadership. I mean, there's clear leadership in our party. Everybody knows who the boss is. He's been saying the same thing for 20 years, been proved right. So you need a vision and you need leadership and you need a plan. And those are the things that, you see Starmer didn't have it. He came into government with no plan. It all fell apart very fast. That's what happened to the Tories. We've got to be different.
Danny Kruger, when we look back, it seems now inevitable that the days of the Prime Minister are dwindling. When we look back on Starmerism, how do you think it will be remembered or defined?
For me, the great clue to Keir Starmer is the detail revealed in one of the biographies of him, which is that he got into politics because he was inspired by the Human Rights Act. So he was a lawyer, obviously a human rights lawyer. When Tony Blair passed the Human Rights Act in 1998, Starmer thought, this is marvellous. This is how we should do politics in our country. We should outsource decision-making to the courts of international law, and I want to be part of that. I want to help make these kind of laws. So he came into politics to do that. That's what he's been doing, and we've seen it in its most disgraceful form in the pursuit of our veterans through the courts, in the handover of the Chagos Islands, the way that his refusal to stop the boats by doing the obvious thing of leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. He defers to international human rights law over Parliament and indeed over the British people. I'm afraid that's what governs that's his ideology, and it's totally disastrous in a Prime Minister.
OK, well, thanks for joining us on tonight's show. I'm Farage. That's the Reform UK MP for East Wiltshire, Danny Kruger. Thank you for your time. Let's get back to the studio now. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by the former Conservative MP, Daniel Kruczynski. Daniel, you were listening in with bated breath there at your former colleague, Danny Kruger. What's your take on the fact that the Conservatives are a busted flush? Keir Starmer's days are numbered on your Reform UK can save Britain?
No, I don't think the Conservatives are a busted flush. Kemi Badenoch is increasingly performing effectively at the dispatch box, and I think she's going to take the Conservative Party to new levels during this Parliament. But what I would say is I remember very well the 1922 committee, days before Boris Johnson was brought down. And I think I was one of 3 Conservative MPs who spoke out in his defence. It was a febrile atmosphere. It was like the assassination of Caligula. A couple of people put the knife in, but everybody wants to be seen to be putting the knife in. We removed that leader, and it led to the most appalling outcome for the Conservative Party, with then 2 subsequent leaders, and then disaster at the general election. So I was speaking to a very senior Labour peer today, and I was giving her that message, and she said, no, it's too late, he's gone. But what I would say is, removing a Prime Minister is a very, very serious issue, and there could be horrendous consequences, not only for the Labour Parliamentary Party, but for the country. And as Danny Kruger has said, we could have an even more left-wing Prime Minister. We've already started to see, as Danny Kruger has said, the damage to the economy of all of our entrepreneurs and wealth creators leaving this country as a result of the massive increases in taxation on businesses. If we get an even more left-wing Labour Prime Minister, then the consequences for borrowing and for our productivity levels and our competitiveness could be even more severe.
Daniel, what do you say to those people who are listening and watching tonight who say, if the Labour leader taxed that far to the left, nobody voted for that, there wasn't a mandate for a socialist government, therefore they should be put to the public, they should go to a general election?
Well, I have every sympathy with that, but it would be a very strange that a Labour Party with a majority of over 150 would sacrifice another 3 years in office in order to allow the British people to make a decision. But one thing I would like to say is that we all have toxic figures in all political parties. Lord Mandelson, I mean, for me, having relayed private government confidential matters to a foreigner, which could be so damaging for the United Kingdom, I think is unforgivable. And when you go into politics, and I speak as somebody who was a foreigner to this country when I came from Poland, I think for me, as an outsider coming into the House of Commons, I think loyalty to Britain and to the British state is something that every member of Parliament should put at the very top of their agenda. And so I think Sir Keir Starmer's position is difficult because he appointed somebody who so clearly, evidently, has betrayed the interests of his nation.
OK, Daniel, thank you very much for joining us tonight in the studio. I appreciate your time.